This is the SolidWorks part file with all of the sketches and planes in place. I'll now show the methodology for creating those features. I'll roll the tree back just so we can handle these one at a time. For the handle, we'll use a revolved boss base. Done. The grip is a sketch on this circular face, and we'll use a cut through all. This is going to leave a rather sharp edge here when we make this cut, so we'd like to soften that. We can soften that with a fillet. One, two. I'm going to set my value to something a little bit smaller. Now be warned that the radius here and here may affect your circular pattern. The large radius will prohibit larger number of patterns. Then we'll select the cut and the fillet, and we'll do a circular pattern. For the pattern axis, it can be this cylinder, and just type in as many copies as you want. There we are. Next, let's take a look at the shank. Let me show you something that's kind of undocumented about SolidWorks. I already have a sketch. If I click on that sketch, I can just pull and start an extruded feature. All I have to do is click on the blue number and type the value that I want. And that's it. It's done. Next, we created a plane in space where we would like to have the center of the blade. So forge middle is going to represent this position. On plane forge middle, I've created a sketch. And that sketch is simply a 450 by 100 rectangle. Next, out front, create another plane, forge end, and I hope it's obvious, forge end is the end of the blade. And we'll put a rectangle there. Now my goal is to loft all the way through these. I'm going to hide the planes because we don't need to see those. And we want to perform a lofted boss base through this profile, this sketch, and this sketch. You can see that the alignment dots aren't aligned at all. And it depends on where we click on this profile, what we can actually do. Now you may get this to preview, but when we click the go, it may be a twisted mess. And this looks like a screwdriver that's been used and abused. So let's delete that loft. And let's be very careful where we pick. Lofted boss base. I'm going to pick the far right-hand corner of this surface, and the far right-hand corner of this surface, and the far right-hand corner of this surface. And you may be asking, well, what's wrong? Why isn't it working? Well, it's trying to loft from this edge. So let's try this one more time, but be a bit more careful where we're selecting. Select inside the surface near that edge. Then select that edge. Then select that edge. Now we've got these alignment thumbs lined up pretty well. Next, we're going to look at start and end constraints. And we started from the face. So from that face, our start constraints are going to be curvature to face. And when I click this, I want you to look over at the preview and see how the preview updates. It pulled this in quite a bit. And that is curvature to face. Next, the end constraint, we end at this smaller rectangle. We're just going to go normal to profile, and when I click this, watch how the preview updates. There we go. Now, from the preview, it may look like it's slightly twisted still, but I'm going to click the green check, and then I'm going to apply a texture, cast alloy steel. So cast alloy steel allows me to look at things without too much being shiny. And that deadens the shininess a little bit, but we should be able to see that actually this looks pretty uniform. I don't really see any twisting going on. I see a nice lofted shape that comes off of the shaft in a natural way. We've got a general forge shape here, so this looks like it's been mashed into submission, and then it tapers out into a nice square blade. That is a good loft. Next, I think I'd like to customize this with some text. And to do that, we'll put a sketch on this flat face of the handle. And I'll use a center line just to define where that text is going to go. 1, 2. We'll search for the Sketch Text tool. We must be in a sketch when we do this. Text. Your text. We'll say your name here. Okay. Notice that it just starts typing wherever it thinks the cursor is, but that's why we drew the center line. We can actually attach it to a line. Next, we can clear the standard font and choose any true type font we want. I'll just change the size to something a little bit larger. Be aware that not all true type fonts will work for all letters. Click OK. Click OK. And if you need to adjust the position, you can just move that line and the text will follow that line. Now I forgot to say that to get back into that text, just double click on the text and you'll get back into the text tool. You can apply different formatting features to that text, and you can also flip it, and these are just different mirrors. So I can reverse the text, and this is important when you're creating molds, and I can also flip it. And I have some additional parameters here, so I would encourage you to play around with it. If you get too messed up, just hit the red X. Now this is a sketch, so I can either do an extrude or I can do an extruded cut. It's your choice. I'll do an extrude, but we want a very small value so that this doesn't grow too much. It's just going to create a silhouette for us. And there's our silhouette, and you can see that it is actually raised off that surface just slightly. Now I'd like to do a circular pattern of that. So I take that feature, we'll search for circular pattern, and I can use the same round thing for my pattern axis. Now I think I'd like to have the text on every other hand grip, so I'm going to set the pattern to 3, and we'll click OK. Next, I'd like to take the circular pattern and the boss extrude, control select those, and I'd like to add an appearance. So I click this, and I want to add the appearance to that top selection, which is boss extrude 2. So I'm going to add the color directly to the features, both the boss extrude and the circular pattern. Black. You can choose your color, you can choose whatever you want. Okay. Now as I spin this around, you'll see that both the name and the pattern names are black. Next, there's no reason for this handle to be made out of metal, so I can pick on this feature, revolve, cut, and fillet. And circular pattern actually, because all 4 of these features built that handle. Click on the beach ball. We want to pick the feature, that's the top thing. Even though it's just circular pattern, it's going to speak for all the selected. We pick a color, whatever color you want. We click go. So now I have a metal blade, an awesome forged shape, custom text, and a nice red handle. And that is the screwdriver.